The homeless woman accepts a ride in the rain, and the next day wakes up in the billionaire's mansion. Before we begin, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from, and at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. Emily Parker counted the raindrops sliding down her car window, each one a tiny hourglass, measuring the seconds of her dwindling options. 3 months living in her decade-old Honda Civic had taught her to find entertainment in the smallest details. The Seattle rain, usually an annoyance to locals, had become both her nemesis and her companion. "Just start," she whispered, turning the key in the ignition for the 4th time. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then fell silent with a pathetic wheeze. No, not now. She glanced at her phone. 2% battery and no charger since the car's outlet had stopped working last week. Her meager savings wouldn't cover both a car repair and the next meal, much less a motel room to escape tonight's forecasted thunderstorm. The dashboard clock read 7:34 p.m. The darkness came earlier now in late October, making the rain-slicked streets gleam under the streetlights like a noir film set. Emily pushed open her car door, the hinges protesting almost as loudly as her empty stomach. Her waitressing uniform, black pants and a white button-up shirt, was hardly appropriate for auto repair, but it was all she had clean. She popped the hood and stared at the engine as rain immediately began soaking through her clothes. "Like I have any idea what I'm looking for," she muttered, poking randomly at components while rainwater dripped from her auburn hair onto the mysterious machinery. She'd watched a few car repair videos on library computers, but none of them had covered what to do when you're homeless and your house breaks down in a storm. Headlights swept over her as another car slowed beside her. Emily tensed. 3 months on the streets had taught her caution, especially towards strange men in nice cars at night. This particular car was exceptionally nice, some kind of luxury sedan that probably cost more than she'd earn in 5 years of waitressing, if she ever got another waitressing job. The passenger window slid down silently, revealing a man in his early 30s wearing what appeared to be a tuxedo under an open overcoat. His dark hair was neatly styled, his jaw clean-shaven, his expression mildly curious rather than predatory. Still, Emily took a half-step back. "Car trouble?" he asked, his voice carrying easily over the drumming rain. Emily hesitated. "Just a minor issue. I've got it handled." Her teeth chose that moment to chatter betrayingly from the cold. "You're soaking wet," he observed, stating the obvious in a way that somehow didn't sound condescending. "Can I call someone for you? A tow truck?" "No, thank you," Emily replied automatically. A tow truck would cost money she didn't have, and there was no one to call. Her friends had offered couches at first, but weeks had stretched into months, and hospitality had its limits. Pride had kept her from calling her parents in Ohio, unwilling to admit failure after her confident declarations about conquering Seattle. Thunder cracked overhead, followed immediately by lightning that illuminated the man's face. He didn't look like a serial killer, but Emily supposed they rarely advertised the fact. "Look," he said, seeming to sense her wariness. "I'm not trying to be creepy. It's pouring, it's getting late, and you look like you could use some help. I can drive you somewhere safe, a friend's place, a garage, wherever you need to go." Emily's fingers were turning numb in the cold. Her car wasn't just transportation, it was shelter, storage, her last defense against complete homelessness, but it was also currently useless, and the temperature was dropping fast. "I don't have anywhere to go," she admitted, the words escaping before her pride could catch them. Something shifted in the man's expression. Not pity exactly, but a kind of understanding that made Emily feel suddenly, uncomfortably seen. "Then let me at least drive you to a hotel or somewhere warm until the storm passes." Another lightning flash, another thunderclap, and the rain intensified as if someone had turned a faucet to full blast. Water streamed from Emily's hair into her eyes. "I can't afford a hotel," she said. wondering why she was being so honest with a complete stranger. Maybe hypothermia was already affecting her judgment. The man sighed and ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, mussing it slightly. "I'm Nathan Hayes," he said, as if his name should mean something to her. When she didn't react, he continued, "I promise, I'm not going to murder you or anything equally disturbing, but I can't in good conscience drive away and leave you standing in a thunderstorm." Emily weighed her options, which were admittedly few. She could stay with her dead car in the pouring rain and likely end up in the hospital with pneumonia she couldn't afford to treat. Or she could take a risk on this well-dressed stranger who, despite his obvious wealth, seemed genuinely concerned. "Emily Parker," she finally said. "And if you try anything, I have pepper spray and I know how to use it." A smile flickered across his face. "Noted. Grab whatever you need and get in before you drown standing up." Emily reached back into her car, grabbing her backpack that contained her few valuable possessions. A photo album, her laptop, a change of clothes, and her rapidly depleting supply of toiletries. She locked the car out of habit, though there was nothing left inside worth stealing, and slid into the passenger seat of Nathan's warm vehicle. The interior smelled of leather and some subtle cologne. The seat was heated, a luxury that made Emily nearly moan with pleasure as warmth began seeping into her frozen limbs. Classical music played softly from an elaborate sound system. "Where were you headed before your car died?" Nathan asked, pulling smoothly away from the curb. "Nowhere specific," Emily said, suddenly self-conscious of her dripping clothes on the immaculate leather. "Just driving around until the library opens tomorrow." Nathan cast her a sideways glance but didn't comment. "Are you hungry? We could stop somewhere." Emily's stomach growled loudly in response, making her cheeks flush. "I'm fine," she lied. "That was convincing," Nathan said dryly. "There's a diner up ahead that stays open late. We can get some food while we figure out your next steps." "I can't," Emily began. "My treat," Nathan cut in. "Consider it payment for the riveting conversation you'll provide, while I avoid going home to an empty house after a mind-numbingly boring charity gala." Emily wanted to refuse, to maintain what little dignity she had left, but the prospect of hot food was too tempting. "Okay, but just something small." The diner was nearly empty when they arrived. A bell chimed as they entered, and a middle-aged waitress looked up from wiping down the counter, her eyebrows raising slightly at the sight of them. Emily in her soaked waitressing uniform, and Nathan in his tuxedo, like mismatched characters from different movies who had accidentally wandered onto the same set. "Sit anywhere," the waitress called. "I'll be right with you." They slid into a booth by the window, rain still lashing against the glass. Emily tried to smooth her wet hair, acutely aware of how disheveled she must look. "So," Nathan said, studying the laminated menu, "what's good here?" "I've never been here before," Emily admitted. "I've only been in Seattle for 8 months. That makes 2 of us then. I just moved back after years in San Francisco. The tech scene is—" He stopped himself. "Sorry, work talk, boring." The waitress approached, notepad in hand. "What can I get you folks?" "I'll have coffee, black, and whatever the house specialty is," Nathan said. "The meatloaf's good," the waitress suggested. "Comes with mashed potatoes and gravy." "Perfect," Nathan agreed, then looked at Emily expectantly. "Just coffee for me, please," Emily said. Nathan frowned. "She'll have the same as me," he told the waitress, who nodded and walked away before Emily could protest. "I said something small," Emily objected. "Meatloaf is small. It's not like I ordered you the whole cow." He leaned back in the booth. "So, Emily Parker, what brings you to Seattle?" "The usual story. Small-town girl seeks big city opportunities, finds big city rent prices instead." She wrapped her cold fingers around the mug of coffee the waitress placed before her. "I had a job at a tech startup, administrative assistant. It was going well until the company lost its funding. No severance, no warning. Then my roommate's boyfriend moved in, and suddenly they needed my room." She shrugged. "You know how it goes." Nathan looked like he decidedly did not know how it went. "And you've been staying in your car?" Emily stiffened. It's temporary. I have job interviews lined up. This was technically true. She had one interview the following week for another waitressing position. Hey, no judgment, Nathan said, raising his hands. We've all had rough patches. Emily doubted his rough patches had ever involved choosing between gas money and dinner, but she appreciated the attempt at solidarity. Their food arrived, steaming plates of home-style comfort that made Emily's mouth water. She tried to eat slowly, to maintain some semblance of dignity, but after 2 days of nothing but vending machine snacks, her restraint crumbled. Good? Nathan asked, amusement in his voice, as she practically inhaled the meatloaf. Emily nodded, swallowing a large bite. Sorry, it's been a while since I had a hot meal. Something like guilt flashed across Nathan's face. No apology necessary. As they ate, Emily found herself unexpectedly enjoying Nathan's company. He was easy to talk to, asking questions about her hometown in Ohio and her previous jobs without prying into her current circumstances. He told her about growing up in Seattle, moving to California for work, and recently returning to take care of family business after his father's retirement. What kind of business? Emily asked, curious despite herself. Tech, Nathan said vaguely. Boring stuff, really. Software development. By the time they finished eating, the worst of the storm had passed, though rain still fell steadily outside. Emily felt warm, full, and dangerously comfortable in Nathan's presence. So, he said, as the waitress cleared their plates, what's the plan? Is there somewhere I can drop you? Reality crashed back. Emily had nowhere to go, and her car, her home, was currently useless. I guess I need to get back to my car, she said reluctantly. I can sleep there until morning and then figure out how to get it towed. Nathan frowned. You can't sleep in a broken-down car in this weather. I don't have many alternatives, Emily pointed out. Nathan seemed to debate with himself for a moment. I have a guest house, he finally said. It's separate from the main house, with its own entrance. You could stay there tonight, get a proper shower, sleep in a real bed. Tomorrow we can call someone to look at your car. Emily's instincts flared warnings. That's very generous, but I couldn't impose. It's not an imposition if I'm offering, Nathan countered. Look, I understand your caution. You don't know me, but it's just for one night, and like I said, it's a separate building. You can lock the door from the inside. Why would you do that for a stranger? Emily asked, genuinely confused. People didn't just offer homeless women accommodations out of nowhere. Nathan was quiet for a moment. My mother would haunt me from the grave if I left someone stranded in a storm, he finally said, a hint of sadness in his voice. She was big on helping people down on their luck. The simple honesty in his voice made Emily's defenses waver. She was exhausted, her options were limited, and the prospect of a warm shower and clean bed was incredibly tempting. Just for tonight, she agreed cautiously. The relief on Nathan's face seemed genuine. Great, and tomorrow we'll figure out your car situation. As they left the diner, Emily felt a strange mixture of anxiety and hope. She was putting her trust in a complete stranger, something she'd sworn never to do again after her last relationship disaster. Yet something about Nathan Hayes felt safe, despite his obvious wealth and the mystery surrounding his exact occupation. What Emily couldn't know as she settled into the passenger seat of Nathan's luxury car was that this rainy night encounter would change both their lives in ways neither could predict. Nor could she know that the fever she'd been ignoring for days was about to spike dramatically, transforming a simple offer of shelter into something far more complicated. As Nathan drove through Seattle's glistening streets, Emily leaned her head against the cool window, her eyelids growing heavy as exhaustion and illness caught up with her. The last thing she remembered was Nathan asking her a question about Ohio that she couldn't quite catch as darkness swept over her consciousness like the storm clouds over the city. Nathan Hayes prided himself on maintaining control in all situations. He ran a multi-billion-dollar tech company with 5,000 employees. He negotiated mergers worth hundreds of millions without breaking a sweat. He had faced down venture capitalists, rival CEOs, and ambitious board members without flinching. Yet none of that had prepared him for the unconscious woman in his passenger seat. "Emily?" Nathan called, reaching over to gently shake her shoulder when her responses became slurred. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer, her head lolling against the window as rain continued to streak down the glass. When Nathan touched her forehead, he jerked his hand back in alarm. Her skin burned with fever. "Damn it," he muttered, accelerating slightly. This was not how he'd expected his evening to go after escaping the tedious charity gala early. By the time he pulled through the gates of his Lake Washington estate, Emily was shivering despite the car's heater running at full blast. Nathan parked directly in front of the main house instead of the garage and reached for his phone. He hesitated before dialing. A hospital would be the responsible choice, but with no insurance and apparently no money, that would saddle Emily with debts she clearly couldn't afford. And somehow, he suspected she wouldn't thank him for it. Instead, he called the one person he knew would handle this situation without questions. "Mrs. Patel, it's Nathan. I'm sorry to bother you so late, but I have a bit of an emergency." 10 minutes later, his housekeeper arrived from her apartment above the garage, still fastening her cardigan as she hurried down the curved driveway. At 62, Lakshmi Patel moved with the efficiency of someone half her age. She'd worked for the Hayes family since Nathan was a teenager and was the only household staff he'd kept after his parents passed. She took one look at the situation and snapped into action. "Bring her inside," she instructed, already heading toward the house to turn down a bed. Getting Emily from the car was an awkward process. She was semi-conscious now, mumbling incoherent protests as Nathan lifted her into his arms. She felt too light, he thought with concern, as if she'd missed more meals than just the ones today. "I'm just helping you inside," he explained, as she weakly tried to push him away. "You have a fever." "Car," she murmured. "My things." "Your backpack is right here," Nathan assured her. "Everything's safe." The main floor of Nathan's home was a showcase of modern architecture, open concept with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, minimalist furniture in greys and blues, and abstract art his decorator had insisted complemented the space. He rarely used most of it, preferring the smaller study upstairs where he spent most evenings working. Mrs. Patel directed him to one of the 4 guest bedrooms, where she had already turned down the covers and set out towels. "Put her here," she said, gesturing to the king-sized bed. "I'll get some fever reducers and make tea." Nathan gently laid Emily on the bed. She immediately curled onto her side, still shivering, despite being bundled in Nathan's suit jacket, which he'd draped over her in the car. "Should we call a doctor?" Nathan asked as Mrs. Patel returned with a digital thermometer. She placed it against Emily's forehead. 102.3, she read aloud. "High, but not hospital high yet. Let's try to bring it down first." She handed Nathan a glass of water and 2 tablets. "See if she'll take these." Emily resisted at first, but Nathan's gentle coaxing eventually got her to swallow the pills and drink half the water before she collapsed back against the pillows. "Who is she?" Mrs. Patel asked quietly, as they stepped away from the bed. "Her name is Emily Parker. Her car broke down in the storm, and she has nowhere to go." Nathan ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty. "I think she's been living in her car." Mrs. Patel's expression softened with understanding. "I'll stay with her tonight." "No need," Nathan said. "I can check on her. You should get some rest." "With all due respect, Mr. Hayes, this young lady doesn't know you. When she wakes up in a strange man's house, she'll be frightened. Better she sees another woman." Mrs. Patel's tone made it clear this wasn't a suggestion. Nathan knew better than to argue. "You're right. Thank you, Mrs. Patel. I'll put some soup on to simmer for when she wakes," she added, already heading toward the door. "And I'll prepare the guest house tomorrow in case she needs a place to stay longer." "The guest house?" Mrs. Patel gave him a knowing look. "You weren't planning to turn her back out onto the street, were you?" Nathan hadn't thought that far ahead, but Mrs. Patel was right. He couldn't just send Emily back to a broken-down car once her fever broke. Of course not, he agreed. The guest house is perfect. After Mrs. Patel left to prepare the soup, Nathan found himself standing awkwardly in the doorway, watching Emily sleep. In the soft light of the bedside lamp, without the tension of wariness that had marked her face earlier, she looked younger and more vulnerable. The contrast between her life circumstances and his own struck him forcefully. He'd been lucky, born into wealth, educated at the finest schools, given every opportunity to succeed. Even his company, Hayes Technologies, had begun with his father's connections and capital, though Nathan had been the one to transform it from a modest software firm into a tech giant. Emily, clearly intelligent and determined, was sleeping in a stranger's house because her car had broken down and she had nowhere else to go. The unfairness of it made him uncomfortable in a way he rarely experienced. His phone buzzed with an email notification. Another acquisition proposal that required his attention, the real world intruding. With the last glance at Emily, Nathan retreated to his study to work, leaving her in Mrs. Patel's capable hands. Emily woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the distant sound of birds chirping. For a moment, she lay still, savoring the comfort of the mattress beneath her and the silky sheets against her skin, assuming she was dreaming. Then reality crashed in. This wasn't her car. This wasn't anywhere she recognized. She bolted upright, heart pounding, and immediately regretted the sudden movement as dizziness washed over her. The room spun briefly before settling into focus. A spacious bedroom decorated in soothing blues and greens, with an enormous window overlooking a garden, and beyond it, what appeared to be a lake. "What the hell?" she whispered, clutching the covers to her chest. She was wearing the same clothes as yesterday, though someone had removed her shoes. Her backpack sat on a chair near the bed, apparently untouched. The events of the previous night came back in fragments. Her car breaking down, the rain, the handsome stranger offering help, the diner. After that, things got fuzzy. Had she passed out? Been drugged? Panic rose in her throat. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, intending to grab her backpack and find an exit, when the bedroom door opened. An Indian woman in her 60s entered, carrying a tray. She smiled warmly when she saw Emily awake. "Good morning," she said, her voice accented but clear. "I'm glad to see you're up. How are you feeling?" Emily pressed herself against the headboard. "Where am I? Who are you?" "I'm Lakshmi Patel, Mr. Hayes's housekeeper," the woman replied calmly, setting the tray on a nearby table. "You're in his home on Lake Washington. You had quite a high fever last night when he brought you here." "Nathan Hayes?" Emily asked, memories slowly aligning. Mrs. Patel nodded. "He was quite concerned. You collapsed in his car after dinner." Emily vaguely remembered feeling hot and cold simultaneously at the diner, but she'd attributed it to being wet from the rain. "I had a fever?" 102.3, Mrs. Patel confirmed. "It broke around 3 this morning. I've brought you some toast and tea if you feel up to eating." Emily's stomach growled in response. Despite her confusion and lingering alarm, she was starving. "Thank you," she said cautiously, accepting the tray as Mrs. Patel placed it across her lap. The toast was perfectly golden, spread with butter and some kind of homemade jam. The tea smelled of ginger and honey. Emily took a small bite of toast, then another larger one as her hunger took over. "Your clothes were damp," Mrs. Patel said, opening what turned out to be a walk-in closet. "I've put them to wash. In the meantime, you might find something in here that fits. The bathroom is through that door if you'd like to shower." Emily nearly choked on her toast. "Whose clothes are these?" she asked, gesturing to the closet filled with women's garments, still bearing price tags. "Mr. Hayes keeps the guest rooms stocked for visitors," Mrs. Patel explained matter-of-factly. "His sister stays here occasionally and likes to shop for guests." The casual mention of keeping multiple wardrobes available for visitors highlighted the wealth gap between Emily and her unexpected host in a way that made her deeply uncomfortable. "I need to go," Emily said, setting aside the half-eaten toast. "My car, Mr. Hayes, has already arranged for it to be towed to a mechanic," Mrs. Patel informed her. "He'll have more information when he returns." "Returns? Where is he?" "At the office. He left early this morning for meetings, but asked to be notified when you woke up." Mrs. Patel checked her watch. "He should be home in a few hours. In the meantime, please make yourself comfortable. The shower has everything you might need, and I'll be downstairs if you require anything else." Before Emily could formulate another protest, Mrs. Patel had smoothly exited, closing the door behind her. Left alone, Emily sat stunned. The situation was surreal. Waking up in what was clearly a mansion, being served breakfast in bed, offered designer clothes. What kind of person lived like this? And more importantly, what would this Nathan Hayes expect in return for his hospitality? Emily had met seemingly kind men before, who turned out to have ulterior motives. Her last boyfriend had initially seemed supportive of her move to Seattle, only to reveal his controlling nature once she was isolated from friends and family. She'd escaped that relationship 6 months ago, but the experience had left her wary. Still, she reasoned, if Nathan had malicious intentions, why involve his housekeeper? Why not just take advantage of her when she was unconscious with fever? The practical part of her brain, the part that had kept her surviving these past difficult months, assessed the situation. She was feeling better, but still weak. Her car was apparently being fixed, which solved an immediate problem, but would create a financial one. She had nowhere else to go and, at minimum, could use a shower and clean clothes before figuring out her next move. Decision made, Emily gathered her strength and made her way to the bathroom, where she found a spa-like space with a rainfall shower, heated floors, and an assortment of expensive toiletries laid out as if in a high-end hotel. 20 minutes later, feeling more human than she had in weeks, Emily wrapped herself in the softest towel she'd ever touched and reluctantly examined the clothes in the closet. Everything still had tags attached: cashmere sweaters, silk blouses, designer jeans in various sizes. The prices made her eyes widen. One sweater cost more than her monthly food budget. Eventually, she selected the most basic items she could find: a simple grey t-shirt, black jeans, and a blue cardigan. Everything fit surprisingly well, making her wonder if Mrs. Patel had estimated her size or if the closet was simply stocked with every possible option. Emily was brushing her damp hair with a provided brush when she heard the distant sound of a door closing, followed by male voices. Her host had returned, it seemed. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, she decided to face whatever came next head-on. She made her way cautiously down a sweeping staircase, following the sound of conversation to what appeared to be a kitchen larger than her entire former apartment. Nathan stood with his back to her, talking with an older man in coveralls, while Mrs. Patel prepared something at the massive island counter. "Compressor is shot, and the timing belt needs replacing," the man in coveralls was saying. "Plus there's rust damage to the undercarriage that's compromising structural integrity. Honestly, the repairs would cost more than the car is worth." Emily's heart sank. Without her car, she truly had nothing. "What would it cost to make it safely drivable?" Nathan asked. "At minimum, around $2,500, and that's being generous." Emily must have made a sound because all three people turned toward her. Nathan's face registered surprise, then a warm smile that reached his eyes. "Emily," he said, "you're up. How are you feeling?" "Better," she managed, though the mechanic's assessment had sent her spirits plummeting. "Thank you for everything." "This is Hector," Nathan introduced the mechanic. "He's been looking at your car." "I heard," Emily said quietly. $2,500. Hector nodded sympathetically. "That's just to make it safe to drive. Long term, you'd be better off replacing it." "With what money?" Emily wanted to ask. Instead, she nodded numbly. "We'll figure something out," Nathan said, with the easy confidence of someone for whom money had never been an obstacle. "Hector, can you send me the full assessment?" "Sure thing, Mr. Hayes." Hector gathered his things. "I'll head back to the shop. The car's there whenever you want to come see it." After Mrs. Patel showed Hector out, an awkward silence fell over the kitchen. Emily stood uncomfortably, acutely aware that she was wearing clothes Nathan had technically purchased, standing in his home, with no means to repay his kindness and nowhere to go. "You must be hungry," Nathan said finally, breaking the tension. "Mrs. Patel makes an amazing club sandwich." "I should go," Emily blurted out. "I've imposed enough, and I need to figure things out." Nathan frowned. "You were seriously ill last night, Emily. And from what Hector says, your car isn't going anywhere soon. Where exactly would you go?" The question hung in the air between them, highlighting the stark reality of her situation. Emily had no answer that wouldn't reveal the complete desperation of her circumstances. "I appreciate everything you've done," she said instead, "but I can't stay here." "It's not appropriate." Nathan studied her for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "What if you stayed in the guest house?" he suggested. "It's completely separate from the main house, has its own kitchen, living area, everything. You'd have privacy and independence while you sort out your next steps." "Why would you do that?" Emily asked, the question that had been bothering her since the previous night. "You don't know me. I could be anyone, a thief, a con artist." "Are you?" Nathan countered, amusement in his eyes. "No, but that's not the point." "The point is," Nathan said, leaning against the counter, "I have a perfectly good guest house sitting empty. You need a place to stay. It's a simple solution to an immediate problem." When Emily still hesitated, he added, "Consider it a loan, not charity. When you're back on your feet, you can pay me back if it makes you feel better." Emily knew she should refuse. Taking help from a stranger, especially a wealthy, attractive male stranger, went against every survival instinct she'd developed. Yet the alternative was returning to homelessness with no car for shelter and no immediate prospects. "Just until I find a job and save enough for a place," she said finally, hating the vulnerability in her voice. Relief crossed Nathan's face. "Exactly. Temporary." He gestured toward the sandwich Mrs. Patel was preparing. "Now, how about lunch? Then I can show you the guest house." As Emily cautiously took a seat at the kitchen island, accepting the sandwich Mrs. Patel placed before her, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just stepped into a modern fairy tale, one where she didn't know if the handsome prince would turn out to be her savior or her downfall. What she did know was that for the first time in months, she would sleep tonight without fear of being harassed by security guards or awakened by strangers tapping on her car windows. For now, that would have to be enough. Nathan watched her eat, his expression unreadable. "By the way," he said casually, "I never got around to asking, what kind of work do you do? Or did before I ended up homeless." Emily finished bluntly, no point in pretense now. "I was an administrative assistant at a tech startup called Neuratech. Before that, I majored in communications with a minor in digital marketing at Ohio State." Interest flickered in Nathan's eyes. "Digital marketing, that's actually—" He stopped, seeming to reconsider whatever he'd been about to say. "Useful skills," he finished instead. Emily took another bite of her sandwich, wondering what he'd almost said and why he'd changed course. One thing was becoming increasingly clear. Nathan Hayes was not just some random good Samaritan. There was more to him than he was revealing. As she would soon discover, Nathan Hayes wasn't just wealthy, he was one of the most powerful tech CEOs in Seattle, and her presence in his home was about to cause complications neither of them had anticipated. Emily settled into the guest house with a mixture of gratitude and unease. The guest house was larger than any apartment she'd ever rented. A modernist structure of glass and cedar with an open floor plan, fully equipped kitchen, and breathtaking lake views. Nathan had shown her around with casual nonchalance, as if everyone had spare houses sitting on their property. "Mrs. Patel stocked the fridge," he'd explained, opening it to reveal enough food for a week. Wi-Fi password is on the counter. The smart TV has all the streaming services. Oh, and here, he'd handed her a keycard. This opens both the guest house and the side gate if you want to come and go. Now, 3 hours later, Emily sat on the plush sofa, laptop open but forgotten, as she stared out at the lake. The entire situation felt surreal, like she'd stumbled into someone else's life. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "It's unlocked," she called, expecting Mrs. Patel with more unnecessary comforts. Instead, a striking woman in her late 20s walked in without ceremony. She had Nathan's dark hair and sharp features, but where his expression typically held reserve, hers radiated bold curiosity. "So you're the stray my brother brought home," she said, dropping onto the sofa beside Emily and extending a manicured hand. "Alexis Hayes, the considerably more fun Hayes sibling." "Emily Parker," Emily replied, shaking the offered hand. "And I'm not a stray." Alexis laughed. "Relax, that's what Nathan and I call his rescues. Last month it was a one-eyed cat that now lives in Mrs. Patel's apartment. Before that, it was an environmental non-profit about to lose its funding." She studied Emily with interest. "Though you're the first human he's installed in the guest house." "It's temporary," Emily clarified, uncomfortable with the assessment. "Just until my car is fixed." Alexis clearly didn't believe her. "Nate mentioned you have a marketing background. Any good?" "I'd like to think so. Why?" "Because my brilliant but socially awkward brother is too proud to mention that Hayes Technologies desperately needs a social media manager, and I'm tired of doing it as a favor alongside my actual job." Alexis rolled her eyes. "He probably thought offering you a job right after giving you a place to stay would seem transactional." Emily's mind raced. Hayes Technologies. The name suddenly clicked. One of Seattle's fastest-growing tech companies, recently valued at over $4 billion, which meant Nathan Hayes was... "Is that Nathan Hayes?" Emily asked, horrified. "The CEO?" "The one and only," Alexis confirmed, seeming amused by Emily's shock. "He didn't tell you. He said he worked in boring software development." Emily put her head in her hands. "I've been staying in a billionaire's guest house. This is insane." "Multi-billionaire, technically," Alexis corrected. "And he's really not that interesting despite the money. Works too much, dates too little, has the fashion sense of a particularly unimaginative penguin." She stood up. "Anyway, if you're interested in the job, come to the main house for dinner, 7 o'clock. I'll make sure Nathan brings it up." Before Emily could respond, Alexis was gone, leaving behind only the lingering scent of expensive perfume and the bombshell that Emily's mysterious benefactor was one of the wealthiest men in Seattle. Nathan was reviewing acquisition documents in his home office when Alexis barged in without knocking, a lifelong habit he'd given up trying to break. "Your homeless damsel seems nice," she announced, perching on his desk. "Why didn't you tell her who you are?" Nathan sighed, setting down his tablet. "Because for once, someone was talking to me like a normal human being instead of a walking bank account or stepping stone." "So you lied to her?" "I omitted. There's a difference." Alexis snorted. "She needs a job. You need a social media manager. This isn't complicated, Nate." "I don't want her to feel obligated," Nathan argued. "She's already uncomfortable accepting help. If I offer her a job now, she'll think it's pity or that I expect something in return. Or," Alexis countered, "she might think it's a legitimate opportunity based on her qualifications. But what do I know? I just have 3 psychology degrees." She hopped off the desk. "I invited her to dinner. You can thank me later." "You did what?" Nathan called after her retreating form, but she was already gone, leaving him to contemplate how quickly his carefully controlled life was spiraling into chaos. Dinner was an awkward affair at first. Emily arrived wearing the same borrowed clothes, having declined the rest of the wardrobe, despite Alexis's insistence. Nathan appeared genuinely embarrassed about his identity omission. "I should have been up front," he admitted, as Mrs. Patel served a Thai curry that would have put most restaurants to shame. I've just found that when people know about the money, it changes the dynamic. It does change things, Emily agreed, still processing that she was dining with a tech mogul whose net worth probably had more zeros than her phone number. But mostly because it makes your generosity more suspicious. Normal people don't just help strangers without expecting something in return. Ah, but Nathan isn't normal people, Alexis interjected cheerfully. He's pathologically incapable of walking past someone in trouble. Our mother's influence, she added with a softer expression. She believed wealth was a responsibility, not a privilege. She sounds wonderful, Emily said. She was, Nathan replied quietly. An uncomfortable silence fell, broken by Alexis clearing her throat. So, Nathan, didn't you mention Hayes Technologies is looking for a new social media manager? Someone with digital marketing experience? Nathan shot his sister a look that could have frozen lava. We are, he confirmed reluctantly. But I wasn't going to... I'd be interested, Emily interrupted, surprising herself with her boldness. If it's a legitimate position with a fair interview process, not a charity job. Nathan studied her for a moment. The last person quit because I'm apparently impossible to work with and allergic to public engagement. The pay is competitive, but the position reports directly to me, which most people find challenging. I've dealt with difficult bosses before, Emily replied. Not like him, Alexis Stage whispered. Interview tomorrow at 9, Nathan decided. If you're serious. I'll be there, Emily said, meeting his gaze steadily. Alexis raised her wineglass in a toast. To new beginnings. And Duddy, as they clinked glasses, Emily couldn't help wondering if she was making a tremendous mistake. Getting involved with Nathan professionally while accepting his charity seemed like a recipe for disaster. Yet the alternative, continuing to drift without purpose or stability, was worse. The evening progressed with surprising ease after that, with Alexis regaling Emily with embarrassing stories from Nathan's youth, and Nathan occasionally interjecting with corrections or context. For brief moments, Emily almost forgot the bizarre circumstances that had brought them together. Later, walking back to the guest house under a sky scattered with stars, Emily allowed herself a moment of cautious hope. Maybe this strange twist of fate, meeting Nathan Hayes in a rainstorm, was the break she'd been waiting for. Or maybe a cynical voice whispered, it was too good to be true. Either way, tomorrow's interview would be the first step toward reclaiming her independence, one way or another. You hired her, didn't you? Alexis asked, sprawled across Nathan's office sofa the following afternoon. She was the most qualified candidate, Nathan replied without looking up from his computer. Alexis snorted. She was the only candidate you interviewed. Not true. I had Thompson from HR screen 3 others this morning. And they were terrible, Nathan admitted. One wanted to pivot our entire brand to dance challenges on TikTok. The horror, Alexis deadpanned. So Emily starts Monday. Nathan finally met his sister's gaze. And yes, I'm aware this situation is unconventional. That's one word for it. Others might be professionally questionable or personally complicated. Alexis studied her brother thoughtfully. You like her. I respect her, Nathan corrected. There's a difference. Alexis rose gracefully. Well, as your self-appointed social life coordinator and only sibling, I'm inviting both of you to Carlton and Min's dinner party Saturday. Business casual, 8 o'clock. I'm busy Saturday, Nathan protested automatically. Working doesn't count as busy on weekends, Alexis called over her shoulder. I'll tell them you're coming. Both of you. Emily was reorganizing her meager possessions in the guest house when Nathan knocked on the glass door, a folder in hand. Congratulations, he said, handing her the folder. Employment contract, benefits information, and company policies. You start Monday. Emily blinked in surprise. That was fast. I'm efficient. Nathan glanced around the space. Is everything all right here? It's perfect, Emily assured him. Though I was thinking I should look for an apartment soon. I don't want to overstay my welcome. There's no rush, Nathan said quickly. Focus on the job first. Get a few paychecks under your belt. Emily nodded, though she felt increasingly uneasy about accepting so much from him. About the salary, she began, opening the contract. Industry standard plus 15%, Nathan explained. All new hires get the same formula. Emily's eyes widened at the figure, nearly double what she'd made at her previous job. This seems excessive for a social media position. Hayes Technologies values its employees, Nathan stated matter-of-factly. Also, Alexis mentioned my sister invited us to a dinner party Saturday. Business associates and friends. You should come. Good networking opportunity. The abrupt subject change threw Emily. Us? As in you and me together? Ah, not together, Nathan clarified hastily. Separately, but both present at the same event. Emily suppressed a smile at his discomfort. For a powerful CEO, Nathan Hayes could be surprisingly awkward. I don't have anything appropriate to wear, Nathan waved dismissively. Alexis left a dozen outfit options in the guest closet. Her shopping addiction finally proves useful. He checked his watch. I should get back to work. Questions about the contract? Just one, Emily said. Is this a real job, or are you creating a position out of pity? Nathan's expression turned serious. Emily, Hayes Technologies has 5,000 employees. I don't create jobs for any of them out of pity. You're qualified. We need someone with your skills, and I'm a businessman above all else. I don't make charity hires. His directness was oddly reassuring. Then I accept, Emily said, extending her hand formally. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Hayes. Nathan, he corrected, shaking her hand. Mr. Hayes was my father. The dinner party at Carlton and Min's downtown penthouse was Emily's first foray into Seattle's tech elite social circle. Dressed in a borrowed navy cocktail dress that fit suspiciously well, she felt like an imposter among people who casually discussed vacation homes and investment portfolios. Nathan, arriving separately but hovering nearby, seemed equally uncomfortable despite knowing everyone. He wore social interactions like an ill-fitting suit, technically correct but visibly restraining. Nathan rarely brings guests, observed a woman who'd introduced herself as Min, one of the hosts. How do you two know each other? We met during the storm last week, Emily explained carefully. And now I'm working for Hayes Technologies. How convenient, Min replied with a knowing smile that made Emily flush. It's not what you're thinking, Emily clarified. We're just neighbors and colleagues, Nathan finished, appearing beside her with 2 drinks. Emily's heading our new social media strategy. About time, Carlton joined the conversation. Your company's online presence is practically prehistoric. No offense. Full offense taken, Nathan replied good-naturedly. That's why I hired an expert. As the evening progressed, Emily observed Nathan in his natural habitat, respected and deferred to, but not necessarily liked. People sought his business insights, but rarely his company, except for a stunning woman named Vanessa, who seemed determined to claim Nathan's attention. Ex-girlfriend, Alexis whispered, appearing beside Emily. Terrible match. She wanted his money. He wanted someone who cared about more than appearances. Why are you telling me this? Emily asked. Alexis smiled enigmatically. Just providing context. Later, as Nathan drove them home in uncomfortable silence, Emily finally spoke. Everyone thinks we're sleeping together. Nathan nearly swerved. What? Your friends, Emily clarified. They think that's why you hired me. That's ridiculous, Nathan muttered. I don't mix business and pleasure. Says the man whose homeless house guest is now his employee, Emily pointed out. Nathan frowned. Do you regret accepting the position? No, Emily admitted, but I should find my own place soon, for both our reputations. I suppose that's sensible, Nathan conceded, though he sounded oddly disappointed. As they pulled through the gates of his estate, Emily wondered when her life had become so complicated, and why the thought of moving out filled her with an unexpected sense of loss. Emily's first week at Hayes Technologies was a crash course in corporate culture shock. The gleaming headquarters overlooking Elliott Bay housed amenities that seemed absurd: nap pods, a climbing wall, 3 gourmet cafeterias. Her office, adjacent to Nathan's much larger one, featured views that apartments rented for thousands to obtain. More surprising was watching Nathan in CEO mode, decisive, authoritative, occasionally ruthless in meetings. This Nathan was galaxies removed from the awkward man who'd offered her a ride in the rain. "Your social media audit," Nathan requested during their Friday afternoon meeting. Emily handed him a comprehensive report. Bluntly, "Your online presence reads like it was designed by aliens trying to impersonate humans. No personality, no engagement, just product announcements and press releases." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Most CEOs would fire you for that assessment." "Most CEOs don't pick up homeless women during rainstorms," Emily countered. "I assumed honesty was part of our arrangement." A rare smile crossed Nathan's face. "It is. Continue." Emily outlined her strategy: humanizing the company, featuring employee stories, creating authentic content that showcased the impact of Hayes Technologies' products on real lives. "And you think people care about this personal approach?" Nathan asked skeptically. "People don't connect with corporations. They connect with stories and faces," Emily explained, "including yours." Nathan frowned. "I'm not becoming some internet personality." "No one's asking you to dance on TikTok," Emily assured him, "but the occasional authentic post from you would show leadership and transparency." Nathan looked thoroughly unconvinced but nodded. "Implement everything except the parts involving me directly. We'll revisit that later." It was a partial victory, Emily decided as she returned to her office. Rome wasn't built in a day, and Nathan Hayes' public persona wouldn't be either. As weeks passed, a routine developed. Weekdays at the office, occasional working dinners at the main house, and weekends spent mostly in the guest house. With Emily applying for apartments, she increasingly found reasons to reject. Too far from work, bad neighborhood, poor natural light. The truth, which Emily avoided examining too closely, was that she'd grown comfortable in the strange bubble she and Nathan inhabited. Professional by day, cautious friends by night, with Mrs. Patel and Alexis providing buffer and commentary. Meanwhile, Emily's social media strategy was working. Engagement metrics climbed, positive press followed, and Nathan grudgingly acknowledged her success. Their working relationship developed an easy rhythm, punctuated by debates that often spilled into personal territory. One evening, working late in Nathan's home office, the line between CEO and friend blurred further. "Why did you really help me that night?" Emily asked, the question that had lingered since they met. "The truth." Nathan was quiet so long Emily thought he might not answer. "My mother died when I was 23, he finally said. "She was the moral compass of our family. Before she died, she made me promise to use our privilege to help others whenever possible." He swirled the scotch in his glass. "That night in the rain, I heard her voice telling me to stop. It wasn't entirely altruistic." "Still counts," Emily said softly. Their eyes met across the desk, a moment of understanding passing between them that felt dangerous in its intimacy. Nathan cleared his throat and returned to the presentation they'd been reviewing. But something had shifted, an acknowledgement of connection neither was ready to name. The weekend tabloids named it for them, however, when photos appeared online showing them leaving the office together, her hand briefly touching his arm as they laughed at something. "Hayes' new love! CEO dates employee!" screamed the headline, accompanied by speculation about Emily's mysterious background and sudden rise within the company. Sunday morning, Emily stared at her phone in horror as notifications flooded in. Colleagues, old friends, even her parents, all seeing the story. The tentative new life she'd built suddenly felt as precarious as the old one. "This is a disaster," Emily declared, pacing Nathan's kitchen with her phone clutched in her hand. The tabloid story had gone viral overnight, spawning dozens of speculative articles about their supposed relationship. Nathan, infuriatingly calm, sipped his coffee. It's hardly the first time I've been linked romantically to someone in a gossip rag. It's the first time for me, Emily countered. My parents called, my ex-boyfriend texted. Even my former roommate, the one who kicked me out, wanted to know if I was sleeping my way to the top. Nathan winced. That's unfair. It's exactly what everyone thinks, Emily said, collapsing onto a bar stool. I was homeless, you took me in, gave me a job, and now we're supposedly dating. The narrative writes itself. Then we changed the narrative, Nathan replied. I'll have PR issue a statement. No, Emily said firmly. That makes it seem like there's something to deny. We just need to be more professional. I'll find my own place this week. No more working dinners, strict boundaries at the office. Something like disappointment flickered across Nathan's face before he masked it with a nod. If that's what you want. It's what we need, Emily corrected, for both our reputations. Of course, Nathan agreed, his voice neutral. I'll have Alexis help you find an apartment. Apartment hunting with Alexis proved educational, primarily about the vast difference in their definitions of affordable. This one's a steal at $2,700 a month, Alexis said, showing Emily listings on her tablet. Great security walking distance to work, allows pets. I don't have pets, Emily pointed out, and that's more than half my monthly salary. Alexis looked genuinely confused. But you'll still have over $5,000 left each month. Not after taxes, health insurance, and student loans, Emily explained patiently. I need something under $1,500. In Seattle. Alexis looked aghast. You'd be living in a glorified storage unit. Welcome to reality for most people, Emily said wryly. Alexis's expression softened. You know, there's no rush to move out. Despite what the tabloids say, living on Nathan's property doesn't actually mean you're sleeping with him. She paused. Though the chemistry between you two is frankly painful to watch. There's no chemistry, Emily insisted, feeling her cheeks warm. We're friends and colleagues. Alexis hummed skeptically. That's why he smiles more in one dinner with you than he has in the past year, and why you blush every time he enters a room. Can we just focus on apartments? Emily asked desperately. Alexis complied, but her knowing smile remained. At work, Emily implemented her strict boundaries plan with military precision. Professional emails only, meetings with the door open, no private lunches. Nathan matched her formality, though she occasionally caught him watching her with an unreadable expression. The strategy seemed to be working. Office gossip subsided as colleagues observed their strictly professional interactions. Emily's social media initiatives continued gaining traction, and Nathan reluctantly agreed to a limited personal presence online after a competitor's CEO went viral with a candid video. One post, he negotiated, and nothing personal. One authentic post, Emily countered. People respond to humanity, not corporate robots. Fine, Nathan conceded, but I have approval rights. Note, the resulting post, Nathan briefly discussing his mother's influence on his business philosophy, garnered more engagement than anything in the company's history. Emily resisted saying, I told you so, but her triumphant expression said it anyway. Acceptable work, Ms. Parker, Nathan acknowledged dryly. High praise from you, Mr. Hayes, Emily replied, matching his formality while fighting a smile. Their eyes held a moment longer than necessary, that dangerous spark flickering between them again before Emily deliberately broke contact. Boundaries, she reminded herself, essential boundaries. 2 weeks after the tabloid story, Emily signed a lease on a small but decent apartment in a converted warehouse. It stretched her budget but offered independence, her primary goal now that her job was secure. Moving day Saturday, she informed Nathan during their Friday meeting. I've already thanked Mrs. Patel for everything. That's good, Nathan replied, his focus on his computer screen. Do you need help with moving? Alexis volunteered, Emily said, and I don't have much to move. An awkward silence fell, increasingly common in their conversations as professional boundaries hardened into personal distance. Well, Nathan finally said, congratulations on the apartment. Thank you, Emily replied formally. And for everything else, I wouldn't be here without your help. Nathan nodded stiffly. You've more than earned your position. The social media metrics prove it. More silence, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Will you come to the company gala next weekend? Nathan asked abruptly. As an essential team member, he corrected himself. I should be there, Emily agreed. It's part of my job. Right, Nathan said. Your job. He stood, signaling the meeting's end. Have a good weekend, Emily. You too, she replied, feeling oddly hollow as she returned to her office. Saturday morning found Emily packing her few possessions under Alexis's dubious supervision. You're really doing this, Alexis observed, watching Emily fold borrowed clothes she'd finally accepted as gifts. Moving into a shoebox when you could stay in this beautiful guest house indefinitely. It's the right thing to do, Emily insisted. For whom? Alexis challenged. Because my brother's been miserable since you implemented this professional boundaries nonsense, and you don't exactly seem thrilled either. It's complicated, Emily sighed. Only because you're both making it complicated, Alexis countered. You like him. He likes you. The only problem is your stubborn pride and his emotional constipation. I was homeless when we met, Emily reminded her. He gave me shelter, clothes, a job. How could any relationship that started that way ever be equal? Oh, please, Alexis scoffed. You think Nathan rescues everyone he meets. He doesn't. There was something about you specifically that made him stop his car that night. Emily paused her packing. That's not true. He told me about his mother, the promise he made. Nathan has donated millions to homeless initiatives, Alexis said. He could have handed you $5,000, wished you well, and still felt he'd honored our mother's memory. Instead, he brought you home. That wasn't about charity, Emily. Before Emily could respond, her phone chimed with a text from the building manager. Her apartment was ready early if she wanted to move in today. Perfect timing, Emily murmured, both to the message and the conversation. As they loaded Emily's meager possessions into Alexis's luxury SUV, Emily couldn't help looking back at the guest house, and beyond it to the main house where she'd glimpsed Nathan earlier, watching from his office window before quickly stepping away when their eyes met. A clean break, Emily told herself firmly, the only sensible choice. Yet as she settled into her new apartment, industrial chic but sterile compared to the warmth of Nathan's guest house, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she'd made a terrible mistake. All unpacked, Alexis announced, surveying the space skeptically. You sure about this? Positive, Emily lied. It's my own place, earned with my own money. That matters. Alexis squeezed her shoulder sympathetically. Independence is important, she agreed, but so is happiness. Sometimes they can coexist. After Alexis left, Emily stood in the center of her new living room, surrounded by her independence, feeling unexpectedly hollow. Meanwhile, across the city, Nathan Hayes stared out at the lake from his empty guest house, fighting the unfamiliar ache of missing someone who'd never really been his to lose. The Hayes Technologies annual gala was the social event of Seattle's tech calendar, a black-tie affair at the Art Museum, showcasing the company's innovations while raising millions for education initiatives. For Emily, it represented a professional milestone, but also a personal challenge, seeing Nathan in a social setting after a week of careful distance. Her salary had made the event's formal dress code possible, though she'd been practical. A simple black gown from a consignment store, elegant without breaking her budget. Standing before the mirror in her small apartment, Emily hardly recognized herself compared to the desperate woman who'd been stranded in a rainstorm 3 months earlier. You've come a long way, she told her reflection, straightening her shoulders. Don't mess it up now. The museum was transformed when Emily arrived. Glittering lights, flowing champagne, Seattle's tech elite in their finery. As social media director, she moved professionally through the crowd, capturing moments for the company accounts while avoiding the orbit of Nathan Hayes. It proved impossible. As CEO, Nathan was the center of gravity around which the entire event revolved. Emily spotted him immediately, tall and commanding in his tuxedo, somehow both perfectly at ease and subtly detached from the admiring crowd around him. "He's been looking for you," Alexis murmured, appearing beside Emily in a shimmering gold gown, though he's too stubborn to admit it. "We're keeping things professional," Emily reminded her. "How's that working for you?" Alexis asked pointedly. Before Emily could respond, Nathan's voice came through the speakers, calling attention to the stage where he would deliver his annual address. The crowd hushed as he approached the podium. "Welcome, everyone," Nathan began formally. "Hayes Technologies was founded with a simple belief that technology should serve humanity, not the other way around." Emily had helped refine this speech, suggesting he begin with values rather than profit margins. Watching the crowd's receptive response, she felt a flash of professional pride. "But technology alone isn't what makes our company successful," Nathan continued, deviating from the script. "It's people. The ones who build our products, the ones who use them, and the ones who challenge us to be better." His eyes found Emily in the crowd, holding her gaze as he continued. "Sometimes the most valuable perspectives come from unexpected places. 3 months ago, I picked up a stranded motorist in a rainstorm." Emily froze, champagne glass halfway to her lips. "He wouldn't. That chance encounter taught me more about resilience and dignity than any business book ever could. It reminded me why this company exists, not just to make innovative products, but to make life better for real people facing real challenges." The crowd murmured appreciatively, unaware of the subtext. Emily's heart hammered as Nathan continued speaking about the company's charitable initiatives, no longer following the prepared remarks, but speaking with rare, genuine emotion. "He's talking about you," Alexis whispered unnecessarily, in front of 500 people. When the speech concluded to enthusiastic applause, Emily slipped away to the museum's sculpture garden, needing air and distance from the knowing glances coming her way. Rain misted gently, a fitting callback to that first night. "Running away again?" Nathan's voice came from behind her. Emily turned, finding him standing a careful distance away, his expression uncertain. "Your speech wasn't what we prepared," she said. "I went off script," he admitted. "It's becoming a habit around you." "You essentially told everyone how we met." "I told them I learned something valuable from an unexpected encounter," Nathan corrected. "The details remain private." Emily hugged her arms against the cool evening air. "Why did you do it?" Nathan stepped closer, removing his jacket and draping it over her shoulders despite her protest. The gesture echoed their first meeting so precisely that they both paused, the symmetry not lost on either of them. "Because I'm tired of pretending," he said simply, "tired of maintaining professional distance when what I want is the exact opposite." Emily's pulse quickened. "Nathan, let me finish," he requested. "You've been determined to prove your independence, and I respect that. But somewhere in your quest to establish boundaries, we lost something valuable, something real." "The power imbalance is real too," Emily pointed out, though with less conviction than before. "You were my rescuer, my landlord, my boss. And now," Nathan challenged, "you have your own place. Your job is secure, based on measurable results. You've proven yourself to everyone, including me. What's the excuse now?" Emily stared at him, momentarily speechless. The rain began falling more steadily, but neither moved. "I'm scared," she finally admitted. "Not of you, but of how easily you could hurt me. How much I care." Nathan's expression softened. "That makes 2 of us." He moved closer, one hand tentatively reaching for hers. "Emily Parker, I'm going to ask you something, and I want an honest answer. Not what you think you should say, but what you actually want." Emily nodded, her heart racing. "Would you have dinner with me tomorrow night? Not as colleagues, not at my house, but at a restaurant of your choosing. A proper date." And the simplicity of the request, its normality after everything they'd been through, almost made Emily laugh. Instead, she found herself blinking back tears. "Yes," she said, her voice barely audible above the rain. "I'd like that." Nathan's smile transformed his entire face. "I was prepared to be much more persuasive." "Save it for the second date," Emily suggested, surprising herself with her boldness. "Already assuming there will be one?" Nathan teased, his fingers intertwining with hers. "I've learned to plan ahead," Emily replied, smiling despite the rain now dampening her carefully styled hair. A crash of thunder overhead made them both jump, then laugh at the cosmic callback to the storm that had first brought them together. "History repeating itself," Nathan observed, glancing skyward. "Not quite," Emily corrected. "This time I have an apartment to go back to, and a car that works." "Progress," Nathan agreed, his eyes never leaving hers. "Though I'm selfishly glad the guest house is still empty." The rain intensified, but neither moved to go inside. Instead, Nathan slowly closed the remaining distance between them, giving Emily every chance to step away. She didn't. "We're going to get soaked," she warned, even as her free hand reached up to rest against his chest. "Worth it," Nathan murmured, and then his lips found hers in a kiss that felt simultaneously like a beginning and a homecoming. Inside, the gala continued without them. Alexis, spotting them through the rain-streaked windows, silently raised her champagne glass in a private toast before turning away to give them privacy. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and thoroughly rain-soaked, Emily couldn't help laughing at their dishevelment. "So much for making a professional impression." "I think we're past that," Nathan observed, reaching up to brush a wet strand of hair from her face with a tenderness that made her breath catch. "Though we should probably go back inside before we both catch pneumonia." Probably," Emily agreed, making no move to do so. Or, Nathan prompted, his eyes lighting with interest. "Or we could just leave," Emily suggested boldly. "Get some coffee somewhere quiet and figure out what comes next." Nathan's smile was answer enough. As they walked hand in hand toward the parking area, Emily couldn't help reflecting on the circuitous path that had led to this moment, from homelessness to independence, from desperation to choice. "What are you thinking?" Nathan asked as they reached his car. Not the same one from that first night, she noticed, but equally luxurious. "That sometimes the wrong turn leads exactly where you need to go," Emily replied, accepting the hand he offered to help her into the passenger seat, not because she needed it, but because she wanted it. As they drove away from the museum, the rain eased to a gentle mist. Neither knew exactly where their relationship would lead, but for the first time they were truly equals. Two people choosing each other without obligation or power imbalance, clouding the connection between them. 3 months after a desperate woman had accepted a ride from a stranger in a rainstorm, Emily Parker and Nathan Hayes drove toward their future. No longer billionaire and homeless woman, CEO and employee, rescuer and rescued, but simply two people who had found in each other exactly what they hadn't known they were looking for. The unexpected roommate had become something far more meaningful. And neither would have had it any other way. What did you think of the story? Share your opinion in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What was your score? Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to follow all our stories and have fun.